Welcome back, class. We are continuing on our unit on spiritual monism, and now we're going to talk about two forms of spiritual monism. These both come from Hinduism or Indian philosophy, and if you look on the handout, this is number 6. There are two forms of spiritual monism. I'm going to draw them on two halves of the board here. You can see there's a little line in the middle, so we'll use that as our version 1, version 2. The line is the demarcation between them, okay? And I'm just going to draw and explain as I go. It's important for you to know these two forms of spiritual monism because when we look at the objections will line up with these two forms, okay? So the first one is going to be called absolute non-dualism. Absolute non-dualism. And this is saying there's absolutely not two things. All is one. Remember monism? All is one in a very absolute sense. And so we're going to say this is all is one without parts. Now that one's going to have parts, the other version. So all is one without parts. This is just an undifferentiated oneness. And this is coming out in the philosophy called Advaita Vedanta. A-D-V-A-I-T-A Vedanta. Now let me tell you why it's called that. I'm going to get another marker really quick, a purple marker, so that I can explain that. So ADV is like DVA is like DUA. And if I put an L on the end of it, that's dual. That's two, right? So when you have an A in front of it, that's not two. So Advaita means one, not two. Okay, one. And then Vedanta, the Vedas are the religious teachings, the religious scriptures in Hinduism. Anta is the end. So Vedanta is the end of the Vedas. This is the text called the Upanishads. The Upanishads are the texts at the end of the Vedas, which is like the Hindu scriptures. And the Upanishads is exploring the nature of the self. What is the self? What is consciousness? Okay, so that's for your information. Now, the philosopher that teaches Advaita Vedanta is named Shankara. Okay, so 4 is going to be Shankara. He is living around 1200 Common Era, which is like the Middle Ages in the West. So Shankara is a philosopher. You could think of him as kind of like a Plato of India. He doesn't have the same views as Plato, but he's a big name like that, and he's very popular still. His views are very popular still. There's a picture that goes with this that you can use as a way of imagining his view of all is one. So I'm going to draw this as number 5. He talks about the one mind. Here's the one mind, and it's called Brahman. Brahman is pure consciousness, pure awareness, pure bliss. Okay? That's the nature of reality. But it is thinking the world. So here's its thoughts. The world is here, or the world of experience that we're having right now is here. This is where the cycle of reincarnation happens. So remember, there's no distinction between enlightened existence and ordinary existence. That's because reincarnation happens in the mind of the one. Ordinary existence and enlightened existence happens here. So here's you doing your meditations And you're supposed to realize not that you could be released from reincarnation, because that's still part of the illusion. You are supposed to realize your oneness with Brahman. Okay, so a saying in Advaita Vedanta is that Atman is Brahman, or the self is the highest reality. Okay, so the other version of spiritual monism is going to come from a philosopher named Shankara. Now, Shankara develops his philosophy because he thinks Shankara is mistaken. So both Shankara and Ramanuja are philosophers who are reading commentaries on the Upanishads. Remember, the end of the Vedas. And Shankara's view of ultimate reality is impersonal. This is not a person. This is not a god. It's called Nirguna Brahman, impersonal reality. And Ramanuja's father is a priest in the temple devoted to a god named Vishnu. I mentioned him earlier. And Ramanuja's experience is that you can have a relationship to Vishnu, who is a god, through avatars like Krishna. And so he thought Ramanuja thought Shankara's view of ultimate reality was mistaken. And so he develops his view in contrast. So the second view of spiritual monism is going to be called qualified non-dualism. Now, qualified non-dualism means kind of, sort of, maybe not two. All right, so this is all is one without parts. This one's going to be called all is one with parts. So you can see they're playing off of each other. Let's develop one which says there's no parts. Now let's develop one that says there is parts. This one is going to be reading the Upanishads as well, but it's going to be not Advaita, but Dvaita Vedanta. Dvaita Vedanta. Dvaita Vedanta takes off the A. So this says absolutely not two. This one's kind of, sort of not two. Okay. And it's still reading the Vedas. Commentary on the Vedas. It's a philosophy taught by Ramanuja. Ramanuja. Okay, say that. Ramanuja. You know what? I got the dates wrong. I always do this. I got to go back in time a little bit. Shankara's 800s. I was wrong. Shankara's 800s, Common Era. Ramanuja's 1200s, Common Era. Okay. So the picture for this one is that there's one mind and its ideas. The picture for Dvaita Vedanta is going to be like this. There's one being, and it's Vishnu. It's the body of Vishnu. And we are all part of the one. So here's you, here's me, and here's everything. It's all part of the one. So Ramanuja is going to develop the view that the world is an emanation of the body of the god Vishnu. And reincarnation happens here, but what happens in reincarnation is that there are an infinite number of lifetimes and expressions because the god is infinite. So we are reincarnating as part of Vishnu's being, expressing itself infinitely. So there's good and bad about this. There's good. You are kind of real, whereas here you're not. You are not that. You are that. You're kind of real here, but you're also not a person. You're an emanation of the god. So it's an expression of the god. But you're a god. You're part of a god. This is called pantheism. All is God and God is all. Okay, so we have two views, and they are going to be incompatible with one another. There are people practicing both views today in India. I said this is Nirguna Brahman. This is called the Saguna Brahman, meaning the being is personal. It's a god. You can have relationships. The gods are real. They're just different levels of this reality. Okay, so Shankara's followers are going to develop their view further. Ramanuja comes up with a critique against Shankara, but Shankara's followers have responses to Ramanuja. So we're going to look at the objections next. Why did Ramanuja develop a different view than Shankara's? Why should we go with this view? Maybe we'll look at this one first. What does this view look like and what are the objections? What does this view look like and what are the objections? All right, and I think we'll go to the computer for this one. I'll get the handout out and we'll go look at it on the computer. All right, thanks. What we talked about today were two forms of spiritual monism and what they look like, I guess, philosophically. All right, next time, critiques.